The silent scream. The universe had been whispering to humanity for centuries, but on this particular night, it screamed. Lieutenant Sarah Chen sat at her monitoring station aboard Detect X-7, a deep space listening post that floated in the darkness beyond Mars' orbit. For 3 years she had tracked cosmic radiation, catalogued distant star formations, and listened to the endless silence of the void. Her job was routine, almost meditative. The universe was vast and quiet, and humanity was alone in its corner of the galaxy, until the signal arrived. At first it was just a flicker on her display, a pulse of energy that didn't match any known natural phenomenon. Sarah leaned forward, her coffee forgotten as she isolated the frequency. The signal was strong, deliberate, and utterly alien. Her hands trembled as she routed it through the translation algorithms that had been sitting dormant for decades, built by optimistic scientists who believed someone out there might one day speak to us. The computer hummed and clicked, processing patterns that no human language had ever used. Mathematics began to emerge from the chaos. Universal constants, prime numbers, the building blocks of communication that any intelligent species might recognize. And then beneath the numbers, something else. Something that made Sarah's blood run cold. Desperation. She didn't need a translation to hear it. The signal carried a frequency that resonated with something primal, something that transcended species or language. It was the sound of beings facing oblivion, reaching out into the darkness with the last of their strength, begging for anyone to hear them. Sarah's fingers flew across her console as she activated the emergency protocol. Within seconds, alarms echoed through Detect X-7. Within minutes, encrypted channels opened to Earth's High Command. Within an hour, the world's greatest minds were staring at the same data that Sarah had discovered, and they were all hearing the same thing. Someone out there was dying, and they were calling for help. The translation came together over the next 18 hours. Linguists worked alongside artificial intelligence systems, building bridges between human understanding and alien thought. The message was fragmented, damaged by distance and interference, but its meaning was unmistakable. This is Colony Zelthar 9, under attack by hostile forces. Life support systems failing. Hull breaches across sectors 7 through 14. Please, if anyone can hear this, we have children here, elderly. We cannot defend ourselves, and please, anyone. The transmission ended with coordinates. A location in the Andromeda sector, 47 light-years from Earth. A distance that would have been impossible to cross just a generation ago. But humanity had changed. Humanity had evolved. And humanity had prepared for this moment, even if most people didn't know it yet. The United Earth Council convened in an emergency session that was broadcast to every nation. Every city, every home across the planet. Representatives from 200 nations filled the assembly hall in Geneva, their faces grim as they studied the translated message. The question before them was simple, but its implications were staggering. Should humanity reveal itself to the galaxy? For generations, Earth had followed a policy of silent observation. We had listened to the stars, searched for signs of intelligence, but we had never announced our presence. The reasons were logical. We didn't know what was out there. We didn't know if the galaxy was friendly or hostile. We didn't know if humanity was ready to stand among the stars as equals, or if we would be seen as prey. But now, someone was calling for help. Someone was dying, and humanity had to decide what kind of species it wanted to be. Commander James Rodriguez stood at the podium, his uniform crisp, his expression carved from stone. He was a career military officer, a man who had spent 30 years preparing for scenarios that most people believed would never come. He had trained soldiers for battles that might never be fought. He had overseen the construction of ships that were supposed to remain hidden forever. Now, he was asking permission to use them. Members of the council, Rodriguez began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. We have spent the last 70 years building a defensive fleet in secret. We have shipyards on Luna, Mars, and Europa. We have trained crews and developed weapons technology that exceeds anything our civilian population knows exists. We did this because we understood a fundamental truth. Hope is not a strategy. We hoped for peace, but we prepared for war. He paused, letting his words settle over the assembly. The signal we received is a test, not of our technology or our military strength, but of our character. 47 light-years away, innocent beings are dying. They don't know we exist. They have no claim on us. We owe them nothing by any law or treaty. But they called for help and we heard them. The question before this council is simple. What does it mean to be human? Do we hide in the darkness because revealing ourselves is risky, or do we answer the call because it's the right thing to do? The debate that followed was fierce. Some argued for caution. They warned that intervening could expose Earth to threats we couldn't anticipate. They reminded the council that humanity's first responsibility was to protect its own people, not strangers across the void. Others argued for action. They said that if humanity possessed the power to save lives and chose not to use it, then we were no better than the attackers. They said that the galaxy would judge us not by our words or our intentions, but by our actions in this moment. The vote was called at dawn. 147 nations voted yes. 53 voted humanity would answer the call. Commander Rodriguez stood before the cameras, his expression unreadable as he delivered the news that would change everything. By order of the United Earth Council, we are activating Protocol Shepard. Our fleet will launch within 24 hours. We go not as conquerors, but as defenders. We go not to claim territory, but to save lives. And we go knowing that once we reveal ourselves, there is no going back. Across Earth, people gathered in streets and homes, watching the skies with a mixture of pride and terror. Somewhere above them, hidden in the darkness beyond the moon, a fleet was awakening. A fleet that shouldn't exist. A fleet that would carry humanity into the unknown. The Armada was coming, and the galaxy had no idea what was about to arrive. Steel Awakens. The moon had kept humanity's secret for 70 years. Beneath its cratered surface, in caverns carved from ancient lava tubes, the Lunaforge had been operating in absolute silence. Thousands of engineers and construction crews had lived their entire careers in those underground shipyards, building vessels that were never meant to be seen. They had welded hull plates in darkness, installed weapon systems in secrecy, and tested engines that could tear holes in space-time itself. They had done all of this knowing that their work might never matter, that the ships they built might never leave their hidden berths. That changed the moment Protocol Shepard was activated. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of the Lunaforge, watching as blast doors the size of city blocks began to slide open. Beyond those doors, the largest military fleet humanity had ever assembled waited in the lunar darkness. She had been stationed here for 12 years, overseeing the final construction phases of the Dreadnought fleet. She had walked the corridors of ships that no civilian had ever seen. She had trained crews for missions that were purely theoretical, until now. All stations report ready status, her executive officer announced. Docking clamps released. Power systems at full capacity. Crews are boarding their assigned vessels. Elena nodded, her eyes fixed on the main display. Across the solar system, similar scenes were unfolding. On Mars, the dry docks hidden beneath Olympus Mons were opening their sealed hangars. On Europa, beneath kilometers of ice, submarine shipyards were releasing vessels into the frozen ocean before launching them into space. On Titan, on Ganymede, on a dozen secret facilities that existed only in classified files, humanity's true strength was revealing itself. The Armada consisted of 47 warships. Not explorers, not research vessels, not cargo haulers or colony ships. These were instruments of war, built by a species that understood violence better than any other force in the universe. Humanity had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing its own kind. Now, for the first time, that terrible expertise would be turned outward. The flagship was the UES Indomitable, a Dreadnought-class vessel that measured 3 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was composed of layered alloys that could withstand direct impacts from kinetic weapons. Its reactor generated enough power to supply a small city. Its weapons batteries included railguns that could accelerate projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed, plasma lances that could cut through armor like a torch through paper, and fusion torpedoes that carried the destructive power of small suns. Elena had been given command of the Indomitable. It was an honor that felt more like a burden. She would be the first human to lead a military fleet into contact with an alien civilization. She would be the face of humanity to whatever waited at those coordinates, and she would be responsible for the 3,000 souls aboard her ship, along with the 20,000 more scattered across the fleet. Captain Vasquez, a voice called from behind her. She turned to see Admiral Marcus Webb approaching, his weathered face grim but determined. Webb was a legend in the military, a man who had fought in the resource wars and lived to help rebuild civilization afterward. He had been the architect of humanity's secret fleet, the one who had convinced world leaders that building a hidden armada was necessary insurance against an unknown future. "Admiral," Elena said, standing at attention. Webb waved her down. "At ease, Captain. I wanted to speak with you before we launch. You understand what we're about to do, don't you? We're not just rescuing aliens. We're announcing to the entire galaxy that humanity exists, that we're powerful, and that we're willing to use that power. There's no taking that back." Elena met his gaze. "I understand, sir. But what's the alternative? We let innocent beings die because we're afraid of the consequences? That's not the humanity I signed up to protect." Webb smiled, a thin expression that didn't reach his eyes. "That's why I chose you for this command. You understand that strength without compassion is tyranny. But compassion without strength is suicide. We need both if we're going to survive what comes next." He handed her a data pad containing her final orders. "You'll have full tactical authority once you reach the coordinates. Rules of engagement are clear. Defend the civilians, neutralize the hostiles, but avoid unnecessary casualties. We're not there to start a war. We're there to stop one." Elena took the pad, her fingers closing around it like a lifeline. "And if they don't listen to our warnings?" Webb's expression hardened. "Then you show them why humanity spent 70 years preparing for this moment. You show them what happens when someone threatens innocent lives in our presence. You show them that Earth doesn't bluff." Over the next 18 hours, the Armada assembled in the dark space beyond Luna's orbit. 47 warships arranged themselves in a formation that had been practiced 1,000 times in simulations, but never in reality. Supply ships made final runs, delivering ammunition, medical supplies, and provisions for a mission that could last weeks or months. Crew members said goodbye to families via encrypted channels, their words carefully chosen because they knew they might be the last. Elena walked the corridors of the Indomitable, inspecting stations and speaking with her crew. She met Lieutenant Marcus Cole, her weapons officer, a young man with brilliant tactical instincts and a haunted look that suggested he understood exactly what his systems were designed to do. She spoke with Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, the chief medical officer, who was preparing her staff to treat injuries from species they had never encountered. She visited the fighter bays, where pilots checked their craft with the obsessive care of people who knew their lives depended on every bolt and wire. "Captain on the bridge," someone announced as Elena returned to her command station. The bridge was a cathedral of technology, screens and holographic displays showing every system aboard the massive vessel. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency, their training overcoming their nerves. "All ships report ready for quantum jump," her navigation officer announced. "Coordinates locked. Drives charged and standing by." Elena settled into her command chair, feeling its weight accept her. Across the fleet, 46 other captains were doing the same. They were about to make a journey that would take them farther from Earth than any human had ever traveled. They were about to face an enemy they knew nothing about, to defend aliens they had never met, in a region of space that might be more hostile than they could imagine. "Open fleet-wide channel," Elena ordered. "Channel open, Captain." She took a breath, knowing that her words would be recorded, studied, and remembered. "This is Captain Vasquez to all ships. In a few moments, we will make the jump to the Andromeda sector. We go as representatives of Earth, as defenders of those who cannot defend themselves. We go knowing that we may not return, but we go because someone called for help and humanity answered. Every person on these ships is a volunteer. Every one of you knew the risks, and every one of you chose to be here anyway. That makes you the best of what humanity has to offer. It has been my honor to serve alongside you. All ships prepare for quantum jump." She nodded to her navigation officer. "Execute jump sequence." The Indomitable's quantum drive activated with a sound that was felt rather than heard, a deep thrumming that resonated through every deck. Space around the ship began to fold, reality bending in ways that defied natural law. One by one, the 47 ships of humanity's Armada vanished from the solar system in pulses of brilliant blue light. Leaving behind only the fading echoes of their departure, Earth watched from below, millions of faces turned upward, seeing nothing but stars. But somewhere in the darkness, traveling faster than light itself, humanity's steel dragons were racing toward their first battle among the stars. They carried weapons that could shatter worlds. They carried medicine that could save lives. They carried the hopes and fears of an entire species. and they carried a message that would echo across the galaxy. Earth had awakened, and it would not stand by while innocents died. The Armada was coming, and the universe was about to learn what humanity truly meant.